currently serving as your Knox County Commissioner at Large, seat 11. And I'm also the Vice Chair of Commission. I serve on 14 boards and committees, and I also am a member of 6 community and business groups. I want to thank Meg and Katie, and also Mrs. Sellers, for the opportunity to come before you and share why I'm pursuing this opportunity and to deepen my commitment to the people of Knox County that I have had the opportunity of serving over the last 3.5 years and become your next mayor. So really quickly, Farragut is really special to me. My father-in-law, before he passed away, was the principal at Farragut Intermediate from the time the school opened until his untimely death. And so it's very important to me to represent Farragut well. Quickly, I decided to run for mayor for one reason, and that's you, the hardworking people of Knox County who reached out to me, expressed their confidence in me, and asked me to step up and continue my work bringing infrastructure and the need for responsible growth. This has kind of been my life story. I get in there, I work hard, I find solutions, I build relationships, and then people ask more of me. This is simply one of those times that the people I've had the privilege of representing, they have asked more of me, and I'm ready to answer that call. I think it's important to share a little bit about me personally because leadership is cultivated long before a campaign. So I grew up the daughter of 2 working class Christian parents on a 120-acre family farm. And my parents taught me that your faith shapes you, your family grounds you, and your freedom provides endless opportunities, so never take them for granted. Those are the values that guide every decision that I make. Knox County became my forever home when I met and married my amazing husband, Russ, an ET volunteer with big orange roots and a passion for his community and also his county. He served on the Knox County SWAT team for 25 years. He's a physician, and he proudly serves in the Air Force now. We have 2 incredible sons, Jackson and Maddox. They're the love of my life. They're both students at the University of Tennessee, and they really do inspire us every day. Like so many families here, we believe in putting our faith first. We believe in working hard in a thriving economy. We believe in limited government and protecting the freedoms that make opportunities possible. In my 30 years here, I have worked as a healthcare executive. I have been the HR director for a global company, and I've owned a small business. I tell you that because experience matters, because the county mayor is your executive, and they steward a large, complex organization, right? They are responsible for thousands of employees. They set policies, they manage budgets, and they ensure that your essential public services like law enforcement, schools, your roads, public health, emergency services are all delivered efficiently every single day. So this role requires leadership, management, and the ability to connect with people. And I bring all of that to the table. In 2012, I found myself in the political arena because of my everyday efforts to bring attention to the impact of growth and development on traditional infrastructure needs in my own community. My son's classrooms were overcrowded, and I just didn't like the answers I was getting. So I spent the next 15 years working alongside neighbors, businesses, county leaders to address the impacts of development on our roads, our schools, our emergency services, and really our overall quality of life. When communities in East Knox and West Knox County needed additional schools, I led that effort as a citizen advocate. When growth outpaced infrastructure, I organized residents to push for better planning and expect more from developers. When local businesses wanted to support their neighborhoods and their schools, I co-founded a community business alliance to bring people together in service of others. And when the North Shore Choto community wanted a traffic mobility study, I pushed to have it included in our comprehensive land use and transportation plan. I'm a person of action. That's why in 2022, community members and even county leaders encouraged me to run for commission. I was really hesitant. I wasn't a part of the political establishment, and I knew the usual donors and backers would never back me because I had been pushing back on them. But Knox County voters, you showed up and you overwhelmingly chose a community advocate, not special interest, to represent you countywide. As your commissioner, I've turned the work that I started as a citizen advocate into policy, legislation, and planning that focuses on what matters most to you, the taxpayer. Things like requiring developers to fairly contribute to infrastructure, prioritizing the improvements and the safety of our roads, advocating for academic gains and more funding in our classrooms, supporting law enforcement and first responders while pushing, and I push, for better ambulatory emergency response, supporting our agricultural community and land conservation through new legislation, expanding workforce and career pathways, strengthening ethics, transparency, and accountability, protecting our senior and veteran tax relief, keeping taxes low, and minimizing new debt. And really, most importantly, leading the update of Knox County's 30-year-old development regulations, which is one of the most significant efforts this county has ever undertaken. I don't just talk about challenges, I work to find solutions. When I ran for commission, I made one promise. I promised to put people and communities first. And that is exactly what I have done as your commissioner, and that is exactly what I will do as your next mayor. And here's how I'll do it. I will put the needs of our communities first. I understand that every community across Knox County is unique, and it has a different expectation of its local government. And I also appreciate and value citizens as a primary resource. So I will create a Citizens Advisory Council, and we'll work together to ensure that opportunities are heard, and we ensure that we are hearing from every community across the county, and we are identifying specific needs. I will put communities first in government efficiency and accountability by turning the focus internally first. I will do an internal assessment of our policies, our processes, and our partnerships. And I will look for opportunities to ensure the efficient delivery of public services. I will put community first by taking care of what we have. Our roads, our schools, our parks, our offices, and our people. Because when you take care of the people who live here, work here, go to school here, you are preparing for the future, you are strengthening your economy, and you are creating opportunity for all. I'll put communities first in guiding the vision of how we grow through thoughtful development policies, community-minded board appointments, regular reviews of ordinances and land use plans, and making sure that we're preserving the character of our community and not changing them. I will put physical and mental health of our communities first. And I'll do that by working to expand our resources and our partnerships. I'll put communities first by honoring our roots and supporting our agricultural community. I will create an agricultural advisory board, and we will focus on education and supporting local and state efforts to conserve farmland with the ultimate goal of securing support for a regional agricultural education center that will be open 365 days a year and hopefully become the new home of our fair. I will put communities first in outreach and government transparency. I will go out into the communities and I will share the facts about our revenues, our expenses, our debt, our identified needs, and competing priorities. Because many of those things always seem to be absent of the conversation. And I will ask you, the taxpayers, help me chart the path forward. I'll put communities first by redefining decades-old level of services across all departments. We are currently operating on a level of service based on yesterday's needs, yesterday's standards, yesterday's budget, and yesterday's staff. I'll do this by asking the taxpayer, you, what level of service do you expect? And what resources do we need to meet those expectations? The next 4 years will not be easy. It won't. But I feel like my experience and my knowledge as a proven and engaged and effective executive, community advocate, and countywide commissioner has really prepared me to help lead us through our challenges and also our opportunities together. Knox County deserves a leader whose only allegiance is to you, the taxpaying citizen. a leader who's been showing up for this county when it was about people and community and not a campaign or position. Someone whose vision for growth is to grow with purpose and not just expand under pressure. Preserve our communities and our quality of life. Because at a certain point, don't we all have to ask, is growth with lagging infrastructure really progress? And Knox County deserves a steady, experienced, principled leader with a community-minded, collaborative leadership style who will include citizens in the shaping of our future. I know this job. I understand the needs. And I'm ready to take this journey with you. I ask you, do not miss this opportunity to elect a mayor who has been on both sides of the issues as a community advocate and also an elected official. I would be honored to have your support, your prayers, and of course, your vote. I really do encourage you to go to electkinfrazier.com, learn more about me, and reach out if you have any questions.
How's it going, man? So I first want to say, so I read your debt handout that you had sent out, and I do appreciate it because it was pretty enlightening and easy to understand.
Great.
I did have a question on it.
Okay.
So, from my understanding of the way that I interpreted it, was that I think it says Knoxville's debt is planned, manageable, and affordable. That's correct?
It's planned, manageable, and not a surprise.
Okay. And then the second part of that I took away from it was that on the 5-year capital improvement plan, right now that means that we can't add any more infrastructure projects like roads, bridges, utilities for the next 5 years.
Correct.
What I couldn't really gather is that, like, from your perspective, is that like a good thing? Is that something that you would want to maintain, even though we aren't able to add any more projects for the next 5 years?
Well, no. You just heard from our sheriff's candidates. Our officers deserve to be paid what they're worth. And what he didn't share was that to get to that point of the last raise that they received, they had to cut over 30 positions to do that. And so just like I said, and just like with debt, you know, several of you were at the Concord Community Club, and what he's referring to, just to share really quickly, is I wrote out what taxpayers should know about debt. This talks about the county's debt, what you can expect over the next 5 years. But it's very important to note, as he stated, we can pay our bills and we can pay our debt if we don't add anything else to the 5-year capital plan. So when you hear we don't have a revenue problem, we have a spending problem, it's just not accurate. There's so many complexities with county government, and if you don't understand that, it would be irresponsible to say that. So to your point, of course I want to add to the 5-year capital plan, but that is going to depend on you all, the taxpayers. You have to decide what level of service are you expecting from your government, because we can't provide right now, we can't do any more than what we are doing right now. Your hands up. Thank you. You're doing such a great job. I should use it too.
Thank you for being here tonight. I really appreciate you coming out. When you say that if we don't add anything to the next 5 years, and then you also said, sorry, I had a question before that one, but it's just not gonna work. When you said you help get developers to contribute back to our community,
Yes.
what does that mean exactly?
So one of the first things I did when I came on commission was I worked with engineering, public works, and also the legal department to find out what can we do, because in the state of Tennessee, they don't like impact fees, they don't like adequate facilities taxes, they don't have school impact fees as well. And we're never going to get our legislation to change on that, trust me, because we've included it in our legislative priorities for the last 3 years. I was advocating to the state delegation even as a citizen advocate. Developers pay for campaigns, so it's going to be very hard to get that changed. So what I did is I went to the legal department and said, what can we do, and here's my idea. So at the time of rezoning, we passed a resolution that gave commissioners the authority to place conditions on a rezoning to require infrastructure improvements within the project's area. But it has to be a condition on rezoning. So then what happens is the engineering and public works in the county enters into an agreement with the developer called an MOU, and it codifies those conditions. So that is one way we are now requiring more of them.
I have a couple questions, sorry. And so, or remember the other one. So you said that if we don't add anything back to the 5-year plan, I understand from what you just said, is that, we don't have a spending problem, we have, or a revenue problem, we have a.
No, we don't have a spending problem, we have a revenue.
We have a revenue problem,
Mhm.
okay. Okay, well, I wholeheartedly agree with that, because we, since I guess the 80s, have been giving out TIFs and pilots. They have actually slowed down,
They have.
but, how, I just have a really hard time understanding how the developers are giving back to our community when they've actually, like, you've even voted to give them TIFs and pilots. That's tax equipment, financing, that gets deferred and things of that nature. So, like, help us understand, like, that's part of the problem. We're not getting enough revenue from the taxes.
Sure. It's a small part of the problem, and just for you all, TIFs and pilots are a tool and resource that should be used sparingly. It should be used sparingly, and it typically is initiated through the executive office of the county. And as you stated, it has slowed way down. Before I came in on commission, I think we were doing more TIFs and pilots than we are right now. Sadly, we're in a state where we need affordable housing. This is one way that we can accomplish that, and the burden doesn't fall on you, the taxpayers. Now, the concern comes, and this is my concern, is that they have to maintain that development as affordable for about 30 years, and then they have the option to turn it into a market rent. And so, to Kimberly's point, what she's concerned about, and what I'm concerned about, is that your government is then giving a developer a discount, basically, a tax break to build, and then potentially in 30 years, decide to turn it to market rent. So those are things that we do consider with every application that comes before us, and we talk with those applicants. We have that conversation, or at least I do. I can't speak for my colleagues, but I do, and I ask about intention, and I ask about, what are your plans? And I don't support it unless I know for sure that this is going to stay affordable housing, and that it's in an area that there is supportive infrastructure. When we get those, I'm a little different because I look at them through the lens of zoning. I put it through the whole zoning kind of rigmarole that I do for every zoning application that comes before us. And does it align in character and form? Is there supportive infrastructure? Are there things that we want to require as far as additional conditions or expectations? And so it's got to check all those boxes for me as well. She's got one more question.
I don't know, you made me have more. So, you said that one of your goals is to conserve farmland. So I can't remember the exact date.
I'll go ahead and jump ahead because I know where this is coming from. You're going to talk about the 9,000 acres that were moved from the rural area to the planned growth area. And I'm glad you asked that because that was distributed out into the public without any context. And you have to have context. As I said, our growth plans were 25 years old. Our zoning ordinances were 30 years old, right? So in the last 25 years, every month, a rezoning comes before Planning Commission and County Commission for the last 25 years. So the state in 1998 mandated that every county develop a growth plan. In that, you had to designate your land as planned growth area, rural area, or urban growth boundaries, okay? Your urban growth boundaries, that's where your county and city lines meet. So Knox County responded in 2001, under, I believe it was Burchett. They pulled together a coordinating committee and they passed a growth plan. That was in 2001. In the scope of service for that growth plan, the state recommended regular reviews and revisions to match changing conditions. We never looked at it again. We never looked at it. It was on a shelf. We would reference it, and it's also a guide. So in 25 years, when we started to do the review of the comprehensive land use and transportation plan, we looked at every parcel across the county. And many of the parcels that were in the rural areas had been rezoned from agricultural to planned residential or general residential, but they had structures on them, or construction was planned, or we went a step further and pulled them to see if they had been through the rezoning process. If they had, we decided it's probably pretty important to bring that land use designation in alignment with our growth map. That's where those acres came from. And I even worked with Farm Bureau and our farmers across this county to review those parcels. So there's a lot of context that was left out on that. Yes,
That
sir.
was my
Wait,
question.
Mr.
Okay, what was your question?
We're gonna have just a couple more different questions from other
Okay.
persons, okay? Yes.
I heard from a couple of folks, and I have no idea whether it's true or not, but I'd like to know your response. They said that, when COVID broke out, that you supported a measure that.
I
was
wasn't an
shut-
elected official in COVID.
Did you support any measure in
Did
any
not.
fashion? So how is it that you know about this issue? Namely, that the charge or the claim is that you supported something that would shut down small businesses like this one, like Fruition, in response to COVID.
Right, because it's misleading information on someone's flyer. I wasn't an elected official during COVID.
I appreciate you addressing that.
I held no office and I had nothing to do with COVID,
Mr.
so.
Skidmore has a question.
The big question is, if you're elected mayor with the issues with the budget, I mean, do you foresee proposing a property tax increase since Knox County's not had one, I think, since 1999?
Again, that's gonna depend on you all. And what I plan to do is come in that first year, because we will be operating on this administration's budget, right? So we will have a year. That is when we're gonna get out to the communities, and we're gonna talk to you all, and we're gonna identify your needs in every community. And we're gonna determine a new level of service. And then we're gonna ask you, do you want this level of service, or are you happy with this level of service? And then you get to decide. So I don't believe that any mayor should make that decision on their own without community input. I just don't. And I wouldn't do that without you all's approval.
This gentleman in the corner had a question.
Yeah, I just wonder, how do you define affordable housing? What does that mean to you?
You know, I get very aggravated with our developers who come to us and say, I really need this many units per acre because I'm trying to provide affordable housing. To me, that's about price points. They should be using the terminology, we are trying to provide a product within the price points that citizens can afford. Affordable housing to me insinuates something else. So are you talking about price points, or are you talking about?
And structures themselves. To me, affordable housing is an affordable home that I buy,
Right,
own, and I live in, and I sell it, and then I buy a bigger home.
right.
I don't see
So
the
you're talking about
opportunity.
price points.
I don't.
I would love to
I'm-
see
I'm
more.
also talking about single-family homes,
Mhm.
not huge apartment complexes. but
So I
something
have
to
these
rent for rest
conversations
life.
with our developers quite a lot, because they do and they can provide a product within the price points of the average salary in Knox County being around $77,000. They can. They can. They just choose not to. And so we've gotta figure that out. We've gotta figure out where in Knox County do we have supportive infrastructure, where higher density is appropriate even though I'm not a huge fan, but where it's appropriate so that we can get those price points down for first-time buyers and young families. I have 2 sons at UT, and this conversation comes up a lot. They just wanna be able to buy a house and live where they grew up. And I'm worried about it. And so we will continue those conversations, absolutely.
Mr. Crane?
Yes,
On preservation of farmland,
yes,
I understand that there are a lot of people that want this bucolic surrounding. But they didn't pay a dime. It's very difficult, I gather from what I've read, to make a decent living on 640 acres of farmland. Very few farms that are still existing around the city of Indian County are in the neighborhood of 160, 100 or less. And you might get spending money off of that, but you can't live on it.
no,
And the preservation of that, well, when I bought my house in 1972, in a block of Dutchtown to Godfrey to Neighborhood to Bob Curry, we were the only subdivision. The rest of it, for the most part, was farmland.
right,
And it was broken up into about 4 or 5 farms. And speaking of our immediate neighbors, he had a little bit of land left that he raised some cattle on. And as we all did, he got older and passed on. His son was not interested in raising cattle. He had a little piece carved out for his home, and the rest is now another subdivision. And today, I don't think there's any farmland left in that area. And this is just natural economic progression. How do we prevent that? And should we, particularly should the government, prevent that from happening?
we can and we shouldn't prevent it, but what we can do is encourage the preservation. And we've done that through the work of the state with the Farmland Preservation Act that was just passed. We have $25 million to invest in conservation easements. What I would like to see, and that's why I would create an agricultural board, because I already work with Farm Bureau and also the Cattlemen's Association and some of those other farming groups to have these conversations. And he's right. We have individuals who are farming families, but it gets down to second, third, and fourth generation, and there's no incentive to farm. There's no incentive to keep it ag. And so they sell. I go to the Farm Bureau annual meetings, and every year I ask this: if you've received a letter from a developer wanting to buy your land in the last 6 months, raise your hand. The whole room goes up. I'll say the last 3 months, the whole room goes up. I said the last week, the whole room goes up. They're actively pursuing our farmland. So one thing that I would work with our county to do is, we need a layer on our map that points out rich, prime farm soil. And then if it's sold, we can still conserve and preserve that area. And we're doing that a little bit now. But we've gotta get out, we've gotta educate these people, reach out to them, and let them know that conservation easements are out there. And I hope, it's my hope, that we will get to a point where we can create our own conservation easement fund to help our citizens through that process, because it can be quite expensive.
Got a question over here?
Kim, will you explain to the crowd about the Blake Farm? What happened with the Blake Farm up on Holston River, where they were gonna put like 400 houses on it, but then a man went and bought the land and put it into the land?
Conservation easement.
Yeah,
So this was in far east Knox County, and there was a development project coming before, planning commission and county commission, and this was actually before I was on commission. They reached out to our group. I have a group called, Knox Community Planning Alliance. And then we also have little groups across the county that are planning advocacy groups that we work with and kind of fall under us, and we also work with other preservation groups. They reached out to us, and the community did, and said, we need help. And so what we do is go out and we help citizens understand the local government process, the land use process, and then how to craft their messaging and how to advocate on behalf of their area. And so we did that, and we had probably 200 plus people come alongside us and rally to really say, this is not where we need 400 additional homes. And it didn't pass. And so then, thankfully, a gentleman, who was moving to Knox County, he reached out, he saw the land, he saw what happened, he loved our efforts, wanted to get involved, and he's still involved. But he bought it, and he has turned it into the most beautiful preservation of land. He is building this amazing venue barn. They have all kinds of little buildings all over the property. But now he's working alongside us to tell other people about conservation easements and what that means, that it will lock in that zoning even if it is sold. And it doesn't change the property rights or the uses for the landowner. So that's really important to understand that. It doesn't change the rights or the uses, but it locks it in, so if, let's just say, they decide to sell it, it's locked in on ag. So that was a great success story, and we were really proud of our efforts and really the community coming alongside us. So that's the kind of work that I have been doing. That's the kind of work I continue to do on commission, and that's the kind of philosophy and the approach that I will take with the vision of growth in Knox County as your mayor. So, thank you all. Such great questions. Oh,
Mr. White has
Mr.
got a
White,
question.
On the impact fees,
Yes.
anything you put on a developer is passed through. So, and there's a lot of counties in the state of Tennessee that have impact fees of different sorts. Would anybody be willing to study those and see what amount of money that they added to the price of a home when
Oh,
it's
sure.
over?
And we've done that. I mean, every year when we talk about legislative priorities, we have those conversations with the director of finance and really their municipalities. They can do impact fees, they're not necessarily counties, they were grandfathered in, so cities are able to do it, but counties are not, and there's a reason for that. And it came about, the reason those even came about was because of annexation. You know, that was happening in rural areas, and we needed to stop that. So, of course, we would have those conversations, we always look at that, and yes, it does pass through some, but it's very insignificant.
Not to them.
Well, Thank you all for this opportunity to come before you, I appreciate it.
Thank you. That's all.